Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karen Greer, and I am CEO of Secure Content Technologies. And I'm happy to be here today with Nicholas Oberndorfer, also goes by Nick O, with Bitdefender. So, Nick, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here with you, Karen.
Thank you so much for your time. So, going on my theme of hot cybersecurity topics, we've got Nick here today to discuss a number of things. And one of the first things I wanted to ask you is, from your perspective, how do you think organizations can begin to organize and assess their risk?
Great question. And I think we need to backtrack just a little bit because it's not where people often start. People often start with the mandate of go get this tool, go get that tool, go solve this problem. And a lot of what we're trying to do in cybersecurity is shift from playing whack-a-mole, point solutions, having to fight that fire of the day, to being a little bit more proactive. So measuring risk, it's all about understanding what could possibly happen if something were to go wrong. What's the likelihood of that thing happening? And then what's the severity of that potentially bad thing happening? And the question about how do we manage it, it's really somewhat complicated because you need to know where your gaps are, where these risks exist, and then you need to start to measure their impact, their likelihood, the severity, and we can just call that, we'll say, the severity score of a risk. And then you need to measure severity score of a risk against the business outcome of trying to fix that risk. So it's a really complicated conversation. But I think that the simplest place to start with measuring risk is a cybersecurity tool, whether that be Bitdefender's own tooling, whether it be an open source tool just to start with, and then you figure out, okay, do I have the people internally to manage it? But really getting a tool set that is able to surface vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, identity risks, any risk in your organization, and then prioritize them by severity.
Can you tell us a little more about the Bitdefender tool? Because that's really interesting.
Absolutely. So Bitdefender has a variety of tools that I would classify under prevention. And one of those tools historically has been endpoint risk analytics, or what we commonly call risk management.
Mm-hmm.
And that tool in the past has been all about discovering misconfigurations, app vulnerabilities, user behavior risks, and then mapping them either by device or by user that's affected. But this year, there's been a very large focus on proactive security. So we've launched a few new capabilities that tie into risk management and go above and beyond. So one of those would be a tool like our compliance manager that looks at those same misconfigurations, app vulnerabilities, user behavior risks, and it ties those to technical controls for compliance standards. So ISO 27001 or GDPR or PCI DSS, these are compliance standards that have a certain amount of technical controls, and we can help view in real time how your configurations align. Another big innovation, I'm sorry, and this last one, is Phaser. And this is the brand new topic of the year for us, and it's called Phaser because it's proactive hardening and attack surface reduction. We'll dive a little bit about what that means later, but really that's a tool that looks at each individual and gives them unique security controls and settings to make sure they have as few tools accessible as possible, which translates to as little risk as possible per person.
So, can companies use these Bitdefender tools no matter what solutions they already have in place? Or do you need to be a Bitdefender customer in order to use the tools?
Very exciting because coming out extremely shortly, and I say extremely shortly as in contact Karen right away if you want to try, we're going to be releasing a standalone version of Phaser where you can run it on top of an existing security tool, whether that's your built-in Microsoft Defender that's bundled in with your licensing or one of our competitors that we go up against every day. You'll be able to see the findings that Phaser can come up with and then restrict those, let that run either direct control or autopilot, make sure you're getting the best possible security posture per user per device.
That's a very unique offering.
It
Very,
is.
I've not seen that. Very cool. So, there's a lot of acronyms being thrown around and they continue to grow, which
Yeah.
is hard to keep up with. But if a customer already has an EDR or an MDR, why worry about proactive solutions if
Oh,
those tools can respond efficiently? Are they efficient?
yeah. Great question. And I'm sorry for cutting you off there. This one gets me going all the time. So EDRs started out from a very good place. So in the past, our history lesson of cybersecurity, you had antivirus where you had to have a known bad virus and you'd create a signature, and then companies would have a list of signatures and check against it. And then eventually bad actors, adversaries got more advanced and the malware started changing. and malware would change over time. And now it was no longer about just preventing something from get in. You hear the old cliche, it's not if you get hit, it's when. So EDR was built out of a need to solve that. So now it's less about, do we know which specific malware is running? It's about the behavior that malware might take. Can we see all of those individual events, file access, discovery, network changes, and map that to an adversary to detect and respond, whether that's on the endpoint, like we said, EDR, from a managed service like an MDR or XDR for extended detection response with multiple tools. All of these DR tools are great and they're needed as part of a strategy, but having proactive security helps those tools. Because if you think about it, we're collecting a ton of data. We need to process the data. We need people to look at that data and say, is this good or is this bad? It would be a lot more helpful if less data reached that point. So a tool like Phaser that proactively prevents access to an unauthorized app would, in theory, eliminate a lot of the data you have to sift through. And then that sort of helps us address the challenges around the skills gap in our SOCs, the alert fatigue that we're all dealing with. Because if you have less alerts to sift through, then you can really focus on the true signals for your EDR, your XDR, your MDR.
I think alert fatigue is a whole topic on its own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And, the skill set there, it's hard to find enough people to hire on your own, right? So if you have a tool like a Bitdefender, an EDR, things like that, the alert fatigue becomes easier to manage because you've got a partner to help you manage it.
100%. And just from our own personal experience, we have our own MDR service at Bitdefender running 24/7. We're highly encouraging all of our customers to try and leverage something like Phaser because it's a better outcome for them if you can stop something from happening before it gets to the SOC. And it's a significantly better outcome for us because our analysts are then freed up to spend their time on more meaningful work on addressing the incidents as they come in faster. So it really is a win-win for us and our customers.
So what does Phaser actually stand for?
So it stands for proactive hardening and attack surface reduction. And that's a mouthful. I think it's easiest addressed as dynamic attack surface reduction. That's something that we're seeing as a kind of an emerging market as dynamic attack surface reduction. And that means just a tool that continues to learn over time with the end goal of reducing your total attack surface.
That's very cool. So at the end of the day, I think the best security outcomes are delivered by solutions that can prevent an incident from happening in the first place.
100%, yes.
Yeah, I think that's if everyone just takes that away from this discussion, it will lead to additional discussions as we move along.
Yeah, and I think, for me, one more thing to add, none of these tools are effective replacements for one another. It's part of that defense and depth strategy that we've been talking about for forever in cybersecurity. We need to have the best possible prevention, but we still need to have a strategy for if something does get in. And then, tools are great, services are even better. There's a lot of ways we can complement each other, but having a tool like Phaser adds another tool to your tool belt and really helps make everything else more efficient.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that new tool with us. That was really great to learn about. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. My pleasure.
On to our audience. If you would like any more information or like to talk to myself or to Nick further, there's contact information coming up on your screen. We would love to talk to you about Bitdefender, Phaser, or any of the cybersecurity topics that are top of mind for you. Thank you much, Nick, and I look forward to doing more of these with you.
Really appreciate the time, Karen. Thank you.
You're welcome.